Okay, now that she has joined us, everything will be alright. I will finally be able to find my words. Hey Mona, you making cookie dough, baby? Yeah, you make a bunch of cookie dough. You make a bunch of cookie dough, lover. Welcome to my November monthly roundup and empties. It is already a couple of days into December, so you will excuse me, but I think this is still relevant and I would really like to talk about all the products that are in front of me. So without wasting any more of your time or mine, let's just jump right into it. I'm going to first talk about my non-makeup favorites, and I put air quotations because they are actually related to makeup. I'm just going to get to the point. I'm talking about tools, you guys. I purchased a couple of brushes this past month, one from Koyudo and two from Sonia that I really wanted to talk about. The first one is this cute little kabuki from Koyudo that I have been eyeballing for at least the past 2 years, and I don't know why I didn't purchase it sooner, because it is finally the powder brush of my dreams. I've sort of been looking for like the full-day higher quality version of a brush like this, because this size of brush is what I really like to apply my powder with. The only problem with this brush is that because it is of somewhat lower quality, I would always have to basically go in with two different brushes. I would have to go with this one to apply the product, and I would have to go with something like this, which is the I want to say the smooth buffer, yeah, the smooth buffer from Sonia in order to buff it out. And while this is a fabulous brush, which I also purchased relatively recently over the summer and I really like, I always have the feeling with this brush that I'm either over applying my powder or under applying my powder, because it has a somewhat smaller surface. Like, just look at the difference between the surface area of these two brushes. And my personal preference goes for a bigger brush like this, because I'm not a strategic powder applicator. I don't just put here and a little bit of here and a little bit of here. No, I just go all over the place. So a brush like this is fabulous for buffing out, but at the same time not so much for application if you want to be quick with applying all over the perimeter. And this brush is finally the brush of my dreams, because it has the quality of the smooth buffer from Sonia, or at least as close as you're going to get to this quality of fibers, but it also can buff just as well, because it works right on the surface to really buff out that product and create that filtered effect on your skin. And it is also the cutest thing to look at. When I first mentioned this brush to you a couple of weeks ago, I said that supposedly this was shaped like a cat paw, but that is not true. They do have a brush like this that is shaped like a cat paw, but the one that I have is shaped like a flower. And I chose this one because of the color. The two brushes that I purchased from Sonia are also not new. These have been part of the Lotus set. The Lotus set was released, I want to say, summer of 2021. So these have been around for a while. I didn't purchase the set because there were brushes in that set that I didn't think I was going to get much use out of. When it comes to full day purchases, if I go for a set, it has to be a set where I know I will get use out of all the brushes, or at least 90% of the brushes. And if not, I prefer to go a bit more strategic for specific shapes that I think would suit my needs. And these two brushes are absolute perfection. They are just masters in what they are supposed to do. Now, I don't know whether she designed this to be a blush brush. So this is her detail brush. It is a relatively small brush, like slightly pinched with a little bit of a slant here. And just to give you an idea how big this brush is, it is not a big brush, but because I don't have a very big face, for me this is the perfect brush to apply powder blushes. And I love what this brush does on the skin when you buff in your blushes. It just works right on the surface to give you this beautifully blended, filtered look. And I don't really know how this brush does its thing, but it does it really well. And I love it. I think right now this is my favorite blush brush. And I did want to quickly mention it in comparison to the one from the Hinoki set, because the one from the Hinoki set has a relatively similar shape, in the sense that it is also like this slanted shape, not a very big brush, also relatively small. The difference between these two brushes, and I think the reason I prefer the detail to the one from the Hinoki set, is that the one from the Hinoki set has slightly longer bristles, and I feel like because of that it just takes a bit more time for you to apply and buff the product. This one is just a little bit denser, so you apply and buff much quicker compared to this one. Not to say this is not an amazing brush, but if I had to pick my favorite between the two, it would be the Detail from Sonia G. They're both from Sonia G, what am I talking about? And this brilliant little brush, the Soft Definer from Sonia G, has quickly become my favorite pencil blender slash strategic application of darker eyeshadows or eyeshadows on your lower lash line, inner corner. I don't know what to tell you. This brush is absolutely brilliant. I know when I'm in love with a brush, when I'm already plotting to get a replicate of it. And I'm not going to be getting another one of these brushes anytime soon. I tried to be at least somewhat reasonable like that because I really don't need two of these. I have also enough other brushes that serve a similar purpose and serve it really well. But this brush is so good at what it does because it's very thin, it has a little bit of a pointed tip, it's very soft, and the bristles. Now, just to compare, look at something like, for example, the pencil one from Sonia G. It is also very precise in terms of application. It also has a little bit of that pointed tip, but because it's shorter and denser, it's good at applying product, but not so good at blending it out. And while there are occasions for which I actually do prefer the pencil brush, this one is such a fabulous multitasker and it works so well with my eyeshadow and with my needs, and especially when I'm blending eyeshadow out on my lower lash line, I'm always looking for a brush that can get in there, not over apply product, but also be able to like quickly blend it out. This is an amazing little brush and I highly recommend it. Moving into the makeup now, I'm first going to talk about the rest of the collection that I picked up from the holiday Celestial Nirvana collection from McGrath Labs. As you know, that came released in quite a few waves, and I first purchased the Celestial Nirvana, which I've talked about previously, and after that I purchased several more items from this collection. So first let's talk about the face products. I picked up the single blush in the shade Nude Venus II, and I did a demo of both the blush and the highlighter, as well as the little quint that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to link that video up in the cards for you so that you can actually see me applying all of these products. But I wanted to get to know them quite well and see how they're going to incorporate into my daily routine before I come and tell you whether they're favorites or not. And spoiler, they're all three favorites of mine. I ended up actually really liking the blush. At first, when I got it, I was quite disappointed because it was not at all the color that I expected. I don't really know why I expected it to be so very different from what it is, because it is called Nude Venus II, and I have Nude Venus. I know what kind of color Nude Venus is. And what this offers you is the original Nude Venus, but with a little bit of like a pink sheen to it. And I think, like Nude Venus, and the reason I love Nude Venus Original so much is because it is the perfect flushed cheek. It just gives you the most beautiful, like healthy looking flushed cheek. What this one does even better is the sheen. Because it has a little bit of pearl to it, as you blend it out, it just starts to look like this extremely healthy glow on the skin. And I really love the effect of that healthy glow. That is not to say that I don't like the original Nude Venus anymore. I do, because of the color. The original Nude Venus color is more of a peach, whereas this shifts to a peachy pink. And I've been actually grabbing for this blush quite much more often than I expected, which tells me that I really enjoy it. The next product I want to talk about is also one that I'm wearing today, and that is the highlighter in Lunar Nude. Is this Lunar Nude? Nope, that's Venusian Nude. Lunar Nude was the one from last year. Now, this highlighter came with a little bit of polarizing reviews. There's a group of people to which I belong who actually quite enjoy this highlighter, but I think that is a minority here on YouTube. I think most people did not give this highlighter a good review. And the reason for that is because it is quite glittery. I'm not going to beat around the bush for you. This is quite a glittery highlighter. It is a beautiful formula. It is this like baked gelée formula, very reminiscent of her like VR Bliss type of shades, but more leaning towards the VR. But this one unfortunately has some astral elements to it. So she brought in quite much more glitter compared to the same like type of highlighter that she released last year, the Lunar Nude that I mentioned earlier, which is much smoother because the glitter is finer and it's a bit more sparse. Here she has packed on quite a bit of glitter, so now this is verging on a VR/astral formula, and I can understand why a lot of people don't like it. What I do like about this highlighter though, first of all, I'm not at all bothered by the glitter in this highlighter because I just don't mind it. I don't find it to be that offensive. But what I like about this highlighter is how it strikes that perfect middle between being cool and being warm, and that's why it works in both situations. It has that like warm, beigey, nudie, orangey like tone to it, like the base color, and the glitter is silver. So I feel like because of that, this highlighter is actually quite versatile and it ends up working for both warm toned and cool toned looks, and I have also been using it and enjoying it quite a bit. To me, this is quite a glam formula. It looks like glass on the skin, and it is not going to be for everyone. So if you prefer like a more subtle version of her highlighters, then I would advise you to go for something like Golden Nectar or like the likes of that, and don't go for these like glitterier types of highlighters. They're much more glam. Speaking of glam, let's talk about this cute little dude, which is the Quint in Bronze Bliss. She released 2 of these together with the Celestial Nirvana palette, I think offering people quite a large variety of products to choose from. And I think this was targeted towards the consumer that wants a glam neutral look. And I think this is what the little Quint really delivers on. It is glam. If you're expecting formulas and textures in here that are going to be more understated, then this is not the eyeshadow palette for you. These are quite glittery, they're quite impactful. The formula in here is claimed to be something new, and I can feel that it is different from what she has offered us in a lot of other palettes. I do think this is something quite new for her. It is this very dense, very creamy, very thick formula, which has a lot of like glide and slip to it. And while these eyeshadows are quite impactful, at the same time they're quite malleable. Like you can apply any of these, especially the metallic shades, and you can blend them out to be one and done shades. And because a lot of them have like a little bit of a darker base color and then glitter over that, they work really well for one and done eyeshadows. I have really been enjoying wearing this, and I think it's no secret that I've really been enjoying this shade specifically, the shade Lunar Luxury, not only because the texture and the payoff of that shade is literally insane, but also because it is such a unique shade of taupe. I am wearing it today paired with the Celestial Nirvana palette, so I have the green matte from Celestial Nirvana, then I have a bit of this matte gray shade, just like smudged along the lashes for a little bit more definition, and then I have this shade all over my lid and over top of the green, and this one in my inner corner, and I think this looks beautiful. And this shade, despite being so thick and so dense, if you go with like the absolute lightest hand and just pick up a few flecks, you can actually layer it over a number of other eyeshadows, and it gives them a really interesting like cool toned flip. I also really like to wear these 2 shades together. They make a really beautiful like neutral sort of like warm tone glam look. This inner corner shade here has a beautiful like wet shine to it. The only eyeshadow in here that befuddles me is this gray, and not because I mind that there is a matte eyeshadow in here, I don't mind at all. It's just that I don't understand the tone of this eyeshadow together with the rest of these shades. Somehow I feel like this would have been better either as a pure black or a very deep brown shade, but a gray just puzzles me. Pat, explain yourself. I don't get it. I'm on board with everything else except for the tone of this matte eyeshadow. And I'm going to probably repeat myself some more in my yearly favorites and further on into like January and February, because we are in love. This is Rosy Beige from Gucci, and I don't really know what more there is to say about this blush besides the fact that it is unique, it has an amazing texture, and it is just kind of like perfect. It is the perfect like neutral cool toned blush in my collection. I don't really have anything quite like it. The way this looks and lasts on the skin is very much on par with my favorite blush formula, which is the powder blushes from Pat McGrath, but the color is so special, and it's like this like brown, rosy, mauvey, cool toned without really being like gray toned perfection. And I have said this before and I will say it again, I don't blend this blush on my skin, I stipple it, because once you start blending it, it becomes more mauve and more pink, which is not what I'm going for. But if I stipple it, it is the exact color that I want it to be. And just the packaging is adorable. Gucci is definitely doing right by me, because I have basically been a fan of everything that I have tried from them, including the next product that I'm going to show you, which is their finishing powder, which also comes in the same like cute pink, like light pink packaging, but without the little stars. Their packaging has my heart. That has my name signed, sealed and delivered straight into my heart, straight right here. Is my heart here? A little bit lower. I love their packaging. So this powder, the only thing I think I doubt a little bit about this powder is the color, because it is, as you can see, white, and I think it serves as like the universal transparent color. I'm not really sure that's true. I think I would have rather had something that is a bit more like beigey and resembling my skin tone, but it is what it is. When I apply it with a light hand, which is what I usually do with my powders, and I buff it out, I don't get the feeling that it's making me feel washed out or adding a white cast, but that is maybe better for you to say. You've seen me use this powder quite a few times. Do you think that it leaves a weird cast on me? Do you think that it washes me out? Or do you think that it is actually quite okay? I'm unfortunately not wearing it today. I went for my Dior powder because I hadn't used that one in a while, but I've used this powder on camera quite a few times and I'm very curious what you guys have to say about it. Otherwise, it does exactly what I want a powder to do, which is, you know, make my skin appear a little bit as if it is filtered, and also help my foundation to not come off of my face within a few hours. So all in all, I'm quite happy with this powder. Like I said, not sure about the color, but other than that, happy with everything else. Next, let's talk about the Charlotte Tilbury Beautifying palette. I think it's called the Pillow Talk Beautifying palette, and I have this in the shade medium dark. A for effort in terms of packaging. However, this one is a real bummer for me, because it could have been something. It could have been something so perfect. Charlotte, why did you not go the extra step to add a bronzer in here and make this completely perfect? If we had taken this shade out and replaced it with a bronzer in this formula, I would have been such a happy panda. Because the matter of fact is, I adore the formula of these powders. They are so beautiful on the skin. They definitely have a blurring effect on the skin. They have beautiful longevity. They just make you feel so fresh and so glowy, and just gorgeous texture. Beautiful formula. So easy to work with, so buildable. But personally, I am not a huge fan of this blush, but that may be my fault, because I think this palette is just not meant for my skin tone. I like mixing these two together. This one is fine as a highlighter. So where this blush excels in other qualities, unfortunately, it's the colors, which are a little bit of a bummer for me, because these two are practically like, they serve the same purpose to me. They're like this like peachy orange blush. And you know, the highlighter is the highlighter, it's nothing special, but it's also a really lovely highlighter. It's just that it would have been so much better if it was a bit more of a versatile palette. I do pull this out to use it together with my sun-kissed bronzers from Charlotte, so I do get like a full cheek from Charlotte, but I would have really preferred to have a bronzer in this formula, because the formula in here is so good. I'm definitely not going to call this a regret, but I also wouldn't call it an astounding success. We've tackled all of these like newer product releases, but I did want to mention a couple of like older products that have snuck back into my heart. And it's not very difficult for them to sneak into my heart, because they're Mothership palettes from Pat McGrath. They're like permanently nestled into my heart. But I wanted to mention them because this is Divine Rose 1. And Divine Rose 1 is, as you know, a palette that I have a more complicated relationship with, because it's just not my favorite color story. But is that really true? Okay, it's not my favorite color story, but at the same time, it's really like grown on me lately. So I recently reached this whole new low in my flawed logic of purchasing clothes, and I've now started to purchase clothes to match my eyeshadows from Pat McGrath. And I purchased a sweater which just fits this eyeshadow palette so beautifully that now I cannot get enough of it. And the specific look that I cannot get enough of is Velouria through the crease, the brown matte shade to like intensify the outer corner, then this shade here which I can't remember the name of. How can I not remember the name of this? The shade Lovelace all over my lid. Lovelace is just such a unique and difficult to describe shade. It is a bronzy, taupey, mauvey, purpley goodness, and it's just such a complex color. It's one of those colors that you don't really know how to describe, and that is the beauty of it. And then a little bit of Astral Solstice to add sparkle to the look, and a mixture of these two shades in my inner corner because I really love this shade. It looks like it's a white, but in reality it has a beautiful like pinkish duochrome to it. Since it is the season for doing extremely cool toned looks, I cannot not share with you that one of my favorite looks to do lately has been with the Mothership 10 palette, and more specifically looks that I have been doing with this shade here, the shade Platinum Dusk. Platinum Dusk is shaping up to be one of my absolute favorite shades in this palette, if not my favorite, because it is so stinking pretty. My favorite look to do with this palette when it comes to like a more cool toned look recently has been statuesque through the crease, deep brown in the outer corner, platinum dusk all over my lid, and then the tiniest amount of flecks from this VR Sextasy shade over top of that to just give it a little bit of like that ethereal blue sparkle over top. And I really think it all comes down to how incredibly beautiful this shade, the shade Platinum Dusk, is. Another one of those complex, like taupe, brown, silver, sparkly, just such a beautiful shade for the cool toned taupe eyeshadow lovers out there. I just wanted to mention these because I have really enjoyed wearing looks with both of these palettes and like these specific looks that I mentioned today. Also another one that I've really liked to do is I put the silvery taupe shade here from Bronze Bliss over top of Platinum Dusk. That is also a really beautiful look. I have a couple of lipsticks that I'm going to try to get through really fast over here. The first one is a lipstick that I've talked about in favorites before, and I'm going to continue talking about it forever and ever. This is the shade Flash 3 from Pat McGrath, which is one of the most beautiful like fall winter colors. And together with that, I have recently picked up the shade Flash 5, which is a sort of like warmer sister, like a less purpley sister to the Flash 3 color. But Flash 5 is much more of like a red terracotta brown, whereas Flash 3, which is this one here, has much more of like that purpley wine tone brown tones to it. Both of them are extremely flattering, and specifically what I've really loved wearing is these two shades over here for like a more like neutral brown look together with Flash 5 on the lips. I do think the Flash colors from Pat McGrath are like a universally like loved lip line from her collection, but I don't hear people talk about these lipsticks enough. They're so good. And speaking of lipsticks that are really good, let's talk about Lisa Eldridge. So I wanted to mention Velvet Decade again, even though I have probably mentioned it before. But Velvet Decade is this gorgeous, beautiful, like blue-toned chocolate brown. To me, this lipstick basically looks like you have taken dark chocolate and you have smeared it all over your lips. It just looks so delicious and so for the winter. I'm not going to talk about the two eyeshadow palettes from Lisa Eldridge, Sorcery and Vega in this video because I feel like I've not gotten to know them well enough to really speak about them yet. However, the two new lipsticks that were released, I already know how I feel about them. I don't have to think about it much further. So the shade Sorcery, you've seen me wear this shade so many times in the past couple of week or so since I bought them that I think it's no secret to anyone that I'm in love with the shade Sorcery. It is just such a special and unique tone of nude. It is that perfect like grungy, like sort of rosy brown nude beige. I mean, it's not nude in the sense that it's going to look very like inconspicuous on your lips, but it has enough neutrality to it to fit with a lot of different types of looks. And I do feel like it's the kind of lipstick that you can really get away with like looking grungy but not too grungy. Like Decade might be taking it a notch too far if you work in a very conservative environment, but I think Sorcery is the perfect like way to wear something that is a little bit deeper and grungier but still doesn't like cross any professional boundaries. A shade that definitely crosses professional boundaries, but I would wear time and time again at any sort of professional event is the shade Velvet Duchess. You could see from my reaction when I demoed this video how I feel about that lipstick. That has not changed one bit. It is the perfect, like, darker version of Velvet Ribbon, and Velvet Ribbon is like my most favorite red lipstick in my collection, I think. And the final portion of this video is going to be my makeup and skincare empties. I'm as usual going to start with my skincare empties. I finished another bottle of my pore reducing toner with niacinamide from Paula's Choice. This is a real staple in my makeup routine. It is always the first thing that I apply after I'm out of the shower, or when I'm, you know, just doing my regular nighttime skincare routine. Niacinamide is an ingredient, like an active, that has worked really well for my skin, so I stick with it, and this is like the end bottle that I have gone through. Another product that is kind of a staple for me, and I have a mini of here because I got it as a gift with purchase, and I used it when I was traveling, and now that I am not really going to be traveling the next couple of months, I decided to finish it up. And this is the 2% BHA liquid exfoliant with salicylic acid, another active or another ingredient that is really good for my skin because I have very large pores, a lot of blackheads, and I really need to address those with a good BHA toner, and this is just great for me. Another ingredient that I really enjoy in my skincare routine, and it has been a staple as much as possible in the last couple of years because I've had a lot of issues with like little dark spots appearing on my skin. I have one right here which is sort of covered a little bit by my foundation, but I think you can see it very clearly, and another one right here on my forehead, which luckily has really chilled now in the last couple of months, maybe because it's not like sunny outside anymore, or because the combination of the ingredients that I have been using to tackle it has really done something. But one of these most effective ingredients, especially to tackle over hyperpigmentation on the skin, is vitamin C. And I've been using this C25 booster from Paula's Choice already for quite a few years, and I had a difficult start with this product because the issue with this is that because it's so concentrated, you basically have like the vitamin C concentrated in these little balls that when you start working it into your skin, these balls burst, releasing vitamin C onto your skin into a relatively high concentration, which can lead to a little bit of irritation. And I was very close to quitting actually using this product and going back to something with vitamin C that was less irritating, but unfortunately less stable. What I really like about this is that it's a relatively stable formulation of vitamin C. Vitamin C is a very unstable ingredient, so I can keep it a little bit longer. But I found a way to use it thanks to Michelle from Lab Muffin Beauty Science, who recommended to just mix it in with your moisturizer. Okay, and now let's talk about the final thing on the menu today, which is going to be my makeup empties. I'm going to start with a product that I'm going to talk about very shortly because I speak about it in almost every other monthly roundup and empties, and that is my Kiko Extra Sculpt Mascara. I love this mascara, I love the packaging, I love how inexpensive it is and how well it does the job. It is not a mascara for everyone. I've heard from people that really dislike the shape of the wand because it is kind of like this hourglass shape, so it can be quite bulky to get here into your inner corners, but nothing else really does what this does for my lashes. It provides volume, it holds a curl, it's black enough for me. It's just, I don't know, I really like this mascara and I really like how inexpensive it is for what it delivers. A product here that is not 100% finished, but I call this 95% finished, is my little sample size here of the Dim Light Ambient Lighting Powder from Hourglass. The ambient lighting powders from Hourglass are one of my favorite finishing products on the market. I don't think that anything else quite provides the blurring but yet inner glow effect that these ambient lighting powders do. And I would definitely consider purchasing a full size of this once I have gone a little bit through the other powders that I have in my collection. I don't really like to have too many base products open at the same time in my collection, and I had purchased the shade Dim Light specifically to test out the color because I owned Mood Light before, and Mood Light was just a little bit too purple for me. Dim Light is indeed the color for me, so if I would ever go for a full size, it would definitely be this color. The reason I'm quitting on it now is because it's a very small pan, and if I have to get around the edges here, I'm basically applying the product very unevenly on my skin, and it's not a game I would like to play. Now, two foundations. I have finally finished foundations. Do you know how rarely that happens to me, that I finish foundation? Very rarely, extremely rarely. I don't know how people finish foundations ever. It takes me years to go through foundations. Anyway, the first one is actually not even a foundation that I finished all by myself. This was all started by Alice from Alice's Beauty Madness, who recently had her twins and is unfortunately probably going to be MIA from her channel for a little bit. But Alice gave me this foundation last year, I want to say maybe about a year ago actually. This is the Estee Lauder Double Wear Light Foundation. This is a foundation that was discontinued, brought back in a different formula, and then discontinued again. Estee Lauder really can't decide what they want to do with this foundation. I think it is a glorious formula, and I don't understand why they didn't keep it. It is a slightly less full coverage version of the original Estee Lauder Double Wear, but still with the same qualities in terms of like how it holds up on the skin. I have a really good time with the double wear foundations from Estee Lauder. They just really work for me. So this foundation was one of my favorites, and I was heartbroken when it was discontinued. And then I sort of replaced it with the next foundation that I'm going to talk about, but it was never quite the same. And then Alice gave me this to finish up because it was not the right shade for her. I have the shade here, Intensity 2.0, and I have used it quite a bit. I took it with me when I went to my congress, when I wanted to have like a reliably good base of my makeup, and this gave me that. So I'm really happy that I had it at the time, but now I think it's time to call it quit, because there's almost nothing coming out of here, and I don't really feel like cutting the packaging to get whatever is left in there. It's already so old anyway. And the foundation that I sort of replaced the light with is this one. This is the Estee Lauder Double Wear Nude Water Fresh Makeup. Once again, Estee Lauder have gone and discontinued this foundation. This is not really comparable to the light in terms of longevity, and also in terms of coverage. This is much lighter coverage compared to the Double Wear and the Double Wear Light, but it had that beautiful like slightly glowy finish on the skin, and it just made you look really healthy with a very light coverage. And I was really a huge fan of the formula of this foundation. So once again I was heartbroken when they decided to discontinue this one as well. However, I did find a pretty much exact due for this foundation in terms of how it applies and how it wears on the skin, and that is the MAC Studio Water Weight Foundation. And rumor has it that because MAC is also under the umbrella of Estee Lauder, they're producing this foundation basically at the same place. The ingredients are exactly the same, in the exact same order, and they're essentially the same foundation. I did do a video where I compared the two, which I can also link up in the cards if you're interested, but for all intents and purposes, to me, these are the same foundation, and in fact, the one from MAC is actually a better shade match for me. So I have now switched to using my MAC foundation. I've really been enjoying it, and I can finally, without regret, say goodbye to the Estee Lauder Double Wear Water Fresh Nude Foundation. I'm absolutely terrible at keeping it concise. I always start these videos thinking, oh, I don't have that much to talk about, I'm going to try to keep it concise, and then it's always an hour later. What the hell? How? Someone explain to me how. Anyway, whatever. Thank you so much if you made it all the way through to the end of this video. I hope that this was enjoyable and useful to you. And as usual, we shall see each other in my next video. Bye!